So here we are. Hello, I'm Friederike from the Cloud Report, and today I have the opportunity to talk with Amith from HashiCorp. Please introduce yourself. What are you doing? What is HashiCorp doing?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned, my name is Amith Nair. I run the product marketing organization for HashiCorp. Very excited to be here. I think this is a great opportunity for us to display how we integrate with all the different options out there, especially from a Kubernetes standpoint across all of our products. So HashiCorp is built on the foundational belief that there's a fundamental change and shift that's happened and is happening in the market, which is from a static cloud environment to a public cloud environment. But in that transition, there's a lot that's happening that's not traditional to what most folks in the IT organization are used to because of the influx of DevOps. So our products help with a consistent workflow mechanism that helps bridge the gap between the old static world and the new dynamic environment across different layers of this cloud operating model. So at the infrastructure layer, we have a product called Terraform, which is both available on open source as well as commercially. For security, we have a product called Vault, again, open source as well as commercial, which is true with all of our products, by the way. At the networking layer, our solution is called Console. And at the runtime layer, our solution is Nomad. All of these products integrate with Kubernetes. We work on a consistent platform in terms of enabling the ecosystem work together. At the end of the day, our goal really is to help accelerate the deployment of applications to cloud, any cloud, and also work with existing infrastructure that is your old private cloud or your existing data center. So making sure that the old world plays really well with the new world and so on.
Sounds cool. Recently, you published the news that you're releasing a multi-cloud infrastructure automation. Could you tell us something about that?
Yeah, so the first step, as we've talked to customers and to developers and practitioners in order to enable this transition to the cloud is really enabling the infrastructure, right? So you need the platform where you can actually deploy the application. The overall journey for them is defined by the parameters that we call the cloud operating model, which highlights all the different aspects of this journey, right? So you have to start with infrastructure at the base, then you add a layer of security, then you add the networking components, and then you add the runtime orchestration. So multi-cloud infrastructure automation really takes into account all of these different components, whereby we enable the app developer, the operations for folks who are involved with cloud and DevOps to make this happen in a very seamless, easy manner. By making sure there's a consistent workflow that that is also self-service. And from a developer standpoint, if they're trying to enable infrastructure in the cloud, they should be able to take pre-existing templates or predefined, pre-approved templates across all of these different categories or groups within an organization and then deploy it almost seamlessly and automatically.
That's pretty interesting. I have a background as a developer. To me, the question is obvious. Is there a strategy for HashiCorp to integrate within developer tools even better? I mean, something like multi-cloud automation is something which I would see as a developer being integrated in my favorite IDE as much as possible, because, I'm not able to handle that perhaps, but I feel like HashiCorp, specifically Terraform, can do that, right?
Yeah, Terraform today has over 1,200 providers across multiple integration points. I would say one of the strengths that Terraform has is the integration into the ecosystem to enable that automation. Right? One of the core pillars for Terraform, and actually all of our products, is that automation aspect, which is why we believe strongly that creating that consistent workflow is extremely important. So what Terraform really does is, depending on who you use in your infrastructure, maybe it's a firewall provider, maybe it's someone like GitLab or GitHub in terms of or any other cloud providers. Terraform has the providers for each of these applications or products that tie into the automation aspect of Terraform to create a singular workflow and a template. So that is definitely one of the key benefits of using Terraform for sure. And as a developer, I think that is one of the key aspects that they derive from Terraform and all of our tools, is that because it's now pre-approved by the ops team to say, okay, if you're deploying an application that looks like this, then these are the set of infrastructure components that you need. It's pre-approved by the ops team, so they don't have to go ahead and reconfigure it. And it's a self-service model at that point where the developer can then say, because it's available from the ops team, I'm just going to make it part of infrastructure as code for Terraform and deploy it, right? So it makes that transition and that operational aspect that much more simpler, easier, and seamless. But you're absolutely right. It's the automation aspect that really is the derived benefit of everything that we do.
The kind of automation aspect is pretty interesting to me, because again, as a developer, you know, I don't like waiting for things, for example. So looking at cloud environments, specifically a little bit more complex cloud environments, it usually takes a lot of time until all the automated steps are executed. Can you tell us a little bit about the ability of Terraform to execute multiple jobs at the same time? Because I feel like that is another very interesting aspect.
It is an extremely important aspect. I would say there are some really large, complex customers that we have today that specifically request concurrent runs. So I don't know if you saw the announcement we made recently around Terraform Cloud Business Tier. So in addition to having our enterprise solution, which is Terraform Enterprise, which is an on-prem solution, we also have a SaaS solution, which is called Terraform Cloud. The initial goal for Terraform Cloud was primarily focused on practitioners. So it was free tier. They could use up to 4 users, single run only. And then we expanded that to include teams and governance. So the traditional growth velocity or the trajectory that we have seen with customers is as more and more developers or practitioners start to use Terraform, there comes a stage where you want to collaborate. You want to put some governance on top of it, some amount of compliance on top of it. So from a Terraform Cloud perspective, the next tier up was governance and compliance. But then as we started making that available, we were surprised at the number of requests we were getting from large enterprises who wanted to use Terraform Cloud, and their number one request was concurrent runs or applies. Right, so that is now available. So you have multiple, instead of sequencing these applies, you can concurrently run multiple applies, especially for large teams. So yes, that is now available as part of Terraform Cloud as also. But really that aspect of being able to work across with your different colleagues and making the DevOps process faster is very key. You mentioned the time it typically takes from a developer perspective to see actual traffic to the application can sometimes be really long. There's a telecommunications customer that we were working with in the past. They had told us that from the time the developer writes the application, it takes them about 22 weeks before that application sees traffic, and over 70 steps in order to get there. So the reason is the developer writes the application, then submits a request or a ticket to the ops team. The ops team now has to make sure and reconcile the fact that they have a lot of infrastructure applications or infrastructure aspects that they need to consider. Like, is this going into a container? What cloud is this going into? What else do I need to do from an infrastructure standpoint? Once you get their approval, it goes to the security team. The security team is looking at things like, do I need secrets management on this? What kind of rule-based access control do I put in? What authentication mechanism do I have in the background? That takes some time. Then it goes to the networking team. The networking team has to identify the right firewall rules, open up the right ports. By the time it's all said and done, the developer is already developing his next application and the previous one hasn't seen traffic, right? And that's where this collection of tools becomes so important and easy, because now as a developer, let's say they're developing a mobile application. There's a pre-approved template from ops that says, if it meets these standards, then just use this template that is pre-approved by us. Same thing from the security team that says, if it's this application that has these parameters, here's a pre-approved template that gives you the access to the right secrets management systems, the authentication mechanisms, and so on. And across the board, even with the networking team, that's how it follows, right? So what would typically take 22 weeks for this telecom operator drop down to less than 5 minutes. Right? So that's really very impactful when a customer comes back to us and tells us that's the impact they have in realizing the true value of the application at speed and at scale.
I mean, just that example definitely proves where the value of HashiCorp products, specifically Terraform and the new business package actually lies, right? But looking a little bit more over the fence, you mentioned containers, you mentioned Kubernetes, and currently the KubeCon is going on. What is your stance towards Kubernetes containers, and how do you, as HashiCorp, basically support that and integrate with that?
Yeah, so across all of our product sets, we have integrations into Kubernetes and containers, right? I mean, eventually our goal is to make sure our customers, whether it's a practitioner from an open source perspective or an enterprise organization, has the flexibility to deploy the applications where they want. And we are an enabler to make that happen and give them the choice of and freedom. Not just the container aspect, but also from a cloud perspective. So it can be Kubernetes in Azure, AWS, or GCP, or Oracle Cloud. They shouldn't be restricted based on any kind of application sets, right? So that's our goal. To that point, we have Kubernetes integration and container integration to all of our products, whether it's security with Vault. We announced Helm chart integration last year. There's been multiple changes since then, a lot of announcements around that. Terraform has integrations, and so does Console. Nomad specifically is a container orchestration solution, right? So that's the core focus area for Nomad as a product itself that's getting a lot of attention and a lot of downloads from an open source standpoint. The one big benefit of Nomad is it works both concurrently with Kubernetes and independently of Kubernetes too, because it also works with legacy applications. So for folks who are using Java applications or old .NET applications, it will orchestrate that while letting Kubernetes run its course of work on the cloud native applications, or Nomad can do both also. But so yeah, so there's consistent integrations that happen across and continuous developments across all of our products in terms of Kubernetes and container integrations. I guess that's a short answer.
And that was a short answer. Good to know. So here's one more question. I guess I get another short answer in that regard. What is your vision in regard to Terraform, to HashiCorp's product, specifically Terraform, but also the other products you mentioned on the longer term? What is your stance? Where is it directing, going to? What is the next big thing that is going to be addressed with HashiCorp's products there?
Yeah, in terms of pure product announcements, there's some announcements we'll have at HashiConf US Digital, which is our big event in October. So stay tuned for that. But from a pure product perspective, each product is going through its own maturity growth, right? Terraform and Vault are the most mature in terms of where the product set is. It's been in the market for a long time. Terraform in many ways is a de facto standard when it comes to infrastructure provisioning. So really for Terraform, it's improving the self-service capability, adding more automation capabilities in terms of creating templates and so on. For Vault, it's advancing beyond secrets management. We already announced as part of the last release 1.4 and 1.5 of Vault, things like advanced data protection, tokenization, KMIP support, all of these things that really help go beyond just secrets management, adding more crypto layers, right? Adding, enabling data encryption, static data encryption, as well as dynamic data encryption or data in motion and so on. For Console, it's really evolving through that service mesh journey. Console really started off purely by doing service discovery and registrations. So the core premise for Console was, let's discover all the services, microservices on your network, because most people, when they talk about service mesh, they don't realize that is the biggest problem, is discovery. Once you have that discovered, then you can add the layer 7 capabilities and the L4 intentions and so on. So Console's gone through some significant evolution in terms of its roadmap. So Console 1.8, which was announced a few months ago, has advanced service mesh capabilities and WAN connectivity and so on, WAN federation and so on. And for Nomad, it's again that we've really helped with that orchestration aspect then, but how do we extend that beyond just orchestration? How can we provide WAN federation? The last announcement for Nomad was around WAN federation too. So there's a lot of improvements from a pure product set standpoint, but there'll also be a few announcements that'll be very, very exciting in a couple of months time frame. But overall, the vision for us is to make sure from a DevOps perspective and from a developer standpoint, we continue to help developers successfully scale and launch applications at rapid pace, right? And all of these layers matter in that journey.
So basically, your vision is to be there for the developers. I paraphrased it in a different way. To be there for the developers, to provide them all the automation they need, to provide them basically with the infrastructure and the background tools they need, and to just enable them and give them the tools at their hand, at their disposal, right?
Right. Yeah, and not lock them down to a specific set of cloud opportunities or platform and so on. Give them the flexibility.
So one major aspect there is then again perhaps the avoidance of vendor locks and platform locks. So to say basically Terraform, no, HashiCorp is basically a very, very, very important enabler in that regard for openness and for community-driven aspects there as well, right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
Regarding to this, you mentioned in the beginning that you offer Terraform in an open source version and business version. What are the differences and why is open source important for you?
The heart and soul of our company is open source. I mean, what drives us every day is the community in open source that not only provides its feedback, but also contributes into our code, right? So that's who we are, and that will never change. The enterprise aspect of it is based on enterprises adopting the open source solution. So let me be very clear, the open source solution at the platform layer is exactly the same in terms of core capabilities as the enterprise. Where the enterprise capabilities kick in is when large organizations need the collaboration capabilities, because otherwise 10 developers are probably doing the same thing. Why waste their time when you can actually collaborate on something that's a best practice and also already been created? The second is the compliance aspect. You really want to put some amount of rule-based access control around who's using what, how they're using it, how they're implementing it. So all of those kick in from an enterprise capability standpoint. The other aspects of enterprise is deeper auditing across the company, or larger visualizations in terms of dashboards. So things you would think of that maybe a practitioner does not really care about as much, but a large organization from an IT perspective, a CIO would care about in terms of seeing how all of this is implemented across the board and what's happening at the macro level or at the top level that's affecting the overall throughput of the company. Things like cost estimation in Terraform. Maybe a practitioner might not care about it as much, but individual IT organization has a budget on how much they can spend in the cloud. So Terraform cost estimation really helps control and ties actually back to the budget and helps define how much of infrastructure automation can be done and can put limits on what can be implemented. So those kind of things take the core capabilities out and extends it to the enterprises. But really the focus for us is definitely developers and practitioners.
Very cool.
That is awesome. Specifically, that kind of governance aspects you mentioned, as well as basically the integration into the enterprise ecosystem, I feel like is very, very important in that regard. Is there anything, that's perhaps an unexpected question, but is there anything that you would like our readers and viewers to take with them when they watch that video or read the article? Then what should they take with them in regard to HashiCorp, in regard to Terraform, in regard to the products?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is we are, like I mentioned earlier, right? The company at its heart and soul is built by developers, right? The two founders, Mitchell and Arman, are developers, practitioners who code and write code and build products today, right? So they understand for the most part what is happening out there, what the challenges are. And you will see that reflected in our products through and through. And we continue to take feedback openly. We are very open to feedback, whether it's good or bad. I would prefer the good, but definitely take all the bad because that helps us improve our product lines. So we will always be there as a support set for all of our practitioners and developers. the 4 products that we have, plus Vagrant and Packer, which are the 2 other open source solutions, are instrumental in our minds in terms of helping drive cloud adoption at scale for developers and for organizations across the board. Right? So every release that we come out with, every update to the product that we come out with is very intentional in making sure that journey is enabled even further, and that automation continues to make things easier for the developer so they can focus on what is most important to them, right? Which is making sure they build the right applications that drive the business for their organizations forward. So we will be in the background helping them achieve that goal that they have. And so in that regard, we will continue to look for feedback from them and taking that feedback and implementing that in all of our products.
It is awesome. I don't have anything to ask for again anymore, because you basically summed that up so awesomely. And I personally, as a developer, can totally identify with what you said. So I will happily take that towards our readers and viewers. So from my perspective and from my side, thank you for all those insights. And basically, thank you for the great products that you are providing the community with.
Absolutely. And we also have, if you go to for the readers, learn.hashicorp.com, they have trainings available, videos, everything that they need to get started and get the coaching that they need on how to use the products too. So there's a lot of our time that we are putting into making sure we are also helping the community learn how to use the product.
We will spread the word.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.